Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing this morning, Monday morning? We're going to make it a good day today, right? It's going to be a good day today. We're going to talk a little bit about my story, actually, for a second, because I was going through the book earlier today, and I remembered what hit me a lot. What really hit me when I was new, and I just started reading the book. And I think what hit me the most, and before I forget, a friend reminded me to tell you guys, if you could subscribe and like these videos and maybe forward them on to people that you may that may get use out of them, go ahead and do that. So if you could subscribe and like, it would really help the channel. So if you could do that, I'd really appreciate it. So anyway, so when I was new, I remember reading this part, and it's on page 21, and it said, what about the real alcoholic? It says, he may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker, but at some stage in his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. Here is the fellow who has been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredible, tragic things while drinking. He's a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He is seldom mildly intoxicated. He is always more or lessly insanely drunk. His disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature, but little. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world. Yet let him drink for a day and he frequently becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. He has a positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be made or engagement kept. And I remember when I was younger and I was drinking as a teenager, and I remember one time my father, he caught me drinking, I was 14 or 15, and I used to be a good kid, I wasn't a bad kid at all. I would do a lot of, I wanted to please my parents, you know what I mean? And I wanted to be, I wanted to be a good guy. I wanted to be a good son, right? And, I'd mow the lawn or chop wood or pick blueberries for my mother, whatever would make them happy, And then I would go and I would drink alcohol. And I would literally have a personality change, And I remember one time when I got caught drinking, my father was on the phone with his brother saying, Paul's, he's a great boy. He's one of the nicest, kids on the block, but he drinks, he turns into a maniac, And I remember my father saying this almost word for word what it said in this book, before my mother was even born. This book was written. Say they knew us decades before we were even born because of what alcohol does to an alcoholic, because it doesn't separate. We don't metabolize it right. It goes to the brain and it gives us that personality change. And we could become happy. But for me, I became angry a lot. And I would get into a lot of fights. I would go to jail a lot. I would become, to say the least, dangerously antisocial, and disgustingly drunk. And that kind of caught me, that kind of caught me when I was new. I was like, maybe I am an alcoholic. Like I remember my father actually saying this, So when I went to my very first meeting, there was a guy that took me there that my wife at the time knew. He had 18 years sober, and I was on the way to this meeting. It was my first AA meeting ever back in 2001 or something. And he said, if there's 10 people sitting around a table and there's one alcoholic and everybody's drinking at the same rate and everybody's drinking, whatever it is, the same at the same amount, at the same rate, the same alcohol, right? He says, how do you know who the alcoholic is? And I said, well, the one who drinks more. No, we're all drinking the same amount. I says, well, the one that drinks faster. No. I said, well, who is it? He says, the alcoholic is the one that has the personality change. We become a totally different person when we're drinking alcohol because of how we have how we don't have the proper enzymes, quantity or quality, to metabolize alcohol. It just basically goes to our brain. The acetone doesn't separate from the water and the poison, and we end up with a personality change. And you know, this stuff is in the book, and that would happen to me. I would literally have a personality change every time I drank. I was not the same nice, you know, I still had the character defects. You know, I still had all that stuff, but I would actually change. I would become a disgusting person, you know, and people didn't know what was wrong with me, you know, and turns out I was just an alcoholic, you know. And that's like kind of a personal little story that helped me. Like when I would read this book, I started reading about myself. And there's spots all through the book, you know, where it talks about, you know, where he starts and he can't stop, you know, and he tries to stop more than he can't even stop for his own son. Because I just thought I was a bad father, you know, I just thought I was a terrible person. But I was an alcoholic. I could not stay stopped on my own no matter what. You know, so I remember that was probably the first thing that I really remember about reading the big book was that Jekyll and Hyde. You know what I mean? That Jekyll and Hyde change. That the more I drank, you know, the more I became Mr. Hyde. You know, and it helped me. It helped me to read about myself in this. It kept me reading more and more and more. And the more I read, the more I found out about myself. And I started to learn about other things like character defects or selfish and self-centeredness. That being the root of our troubles. You know, I always use this analogy. We're talking about selfish and self-centered, and you know, the way to get rid of self-centeredness is the program kind of forces you. Because of the actions, it's a spiritual program of action. It kind of forces you to think about other people, you know? And like I use this silly analogy all the time, but if I said to you, don't think about chocolate cake, do not think, that's ourself, right? Do not think about chocolate cake. You're probably going to think about chocolate cake more, right? So what's the answer to stop thinking about chocolate cake? And the answer is lemon pie, right? Lemon pie. I'm either thinking about me, chocolate cake, or I'm either thinking about others, you know, lemon pie. So, and the only way I can really stop thinking about me and my problems and my futures is turn myself to somebody else. Like step 7 says, you know, the chief activator of our character defects is self-centered fear. You know, so it's with humility. Step 7 is where we move out from ourselves towards God and towards others. So constant thoughts of others is basically what is the goal of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we're going to remove the stuff that's blocking us from helping others and thinking about others. You know, and because I can't just stop thinking about me. My mind never goes blank. I'm either thinking about them, and that's why commitments are good. That's why panels are good. That's why sponsorship is good. That's why making coffee is good. That's why cleaning up after a meeting is good. That's why picking up a new guy and going to Starbucks and reading the book with him is good. Like, I'm not on me. I'm on lemon pie. I've been on chocolate cake all day long. I need something else to think about. I need somebody else to help. Our very lives as ex-problem drinker depend on constant thoughts of others and how it may help meet their needs, you know. So if you guys could just like the video if you like it, and subscribe and forward it to anybody that you think would benefit from it, you know. And we'll talk later. We'll talk tomorrow. And I hope everybody has a great day today. And love y'all.